12 disasters that changed safety forever, from the Titanic to the Iroquois Theatre. Let's begin. Number 1. Titanic, the ship that changed every lifeboat. The Titanic had room for over 2,000 people. It carried lifeboats for barely half of them. When the ship went down, more than 1,500 people died circumflex euros, not because the ship sank too fast, but because there were not enough boats. Before the Titanic, lifeboat rules were based on how heavy a ship was, not how many people it carried. The regulations had not been updated since 1894. Ships had grown enormous, but the rules stayed small. Nobody expected a big ship to actually sink. The inquiries found the obvious. Not enough lifeboats, no drill boats launched half full, and the nearest ship missed the distress call because its radio operator had gone to sleep. In 1914, the first SOLAS treaty was signed circumflex euros, the most important maritime safety law in history. SOLAS required lifeboats for every person on board. Radio watches became 24 hours. The International Ice Patrol was created to spot icebergs. Lifeboat drills became mandatory. Every cruise ship you board today follows rules written because of one night in 1912. 1,500 people died because the rules had not kept up with the ships. The Titanic did not just sink into the ocean. It sank the idea that any ship was unsinkable circumflex euros, and built the safety standards that protect every passenger at sea today. Number 2. Triangle Shirtwaist, the fire that changed every building. The door was locked. From the outside, 146 workers were trapped inside a burning building because their employer locked the exits. The Triangle Shirtwaist fire did not just change New York circumflex euros, it changed every building in America. Factory owners locked exit doors to stop workers from taking breaks or stealing fabric. Hundreds of people worked in rooms with one narrow staircase. No sprinklers, no fire alarms, no fire escapes. Flammable fabric was piled on every surface. It was not a workplace circumflex euros, it was a trap. The public was outraged. A commission inspected factories across New York and found the same deadly conditions everywhere. New laws followed. Fire escapes on every building, sprinkler systems, doors that open outward and can never be locked during work hours. Factory inspections became mandatory. Fire escapes became standard on every multi-story building. Sprinkler systems were installed in ceilings. Exit signs were lit above every door. Push-bar doors replaced locks circumflex euros, always opening outward, never trapping anyone inside. Building codes spread from New York to every state in America. Every fire exit you have ever walked past, every sprinkler above your head, every glowing exit sign circumflex euros. They exist because of 146 people who could not get out. The fire that changed every building in America. Number 3. Great Fire of London, the fire that rebuilt a city in stone. The houses were made of wood. They were packed wall to wall. When fire broke out in a bakery on Pudding Lane, it jumped from roof to roof without stopping. In 4 days, it destroyed 13,000 homes and most of the city of London. Medieval London was built of timber and thatch. Houses leaned over lanes so narrow the upper floors almost touched. Every home had an open fire for cooking. There were no fire brigades, no water mains, and no building codes. The city was one stray spark away from disaster. London was rebuilt from scratch. The Rebuilding Act of 1667 banned timber walls and thatched roofs. Streets were widened so fire could not jump between buildings. Brick and stone replaced wood. Christopher Wren redesigned the skyline. The new London was built to resist fire. The fire created something London had never had: organized firefighting. Insurance companies hired fire brigades. Hand pump engines were built. Building codes spread to cities across Europe. Brick and stone replaced timber everywhere. The Great Fire destroyed medieval London and built the modern idea of fire safety. Every brick building, every fire brigade, every building code that says how far apart structures must stand circumflex euros. The trail leads back to London in 1666. A city burned down so completely that it was rebuilt to never burn the same way again. Number 4. Hindenburg, 37 seconds that ended an industry. The Hindenburg was 800 feet of silver elegance, floating toward a routine landing. Cameras were rolling, then a flash at the tail. In 37 seconds, the largest airship ever built was a skeleton of burning metal on the ground, and the age of airships was over. Airships were the future of travel. The Hindenburg crossed the Atlantic in 2 days with dining rooms, a lounge, and panoramic windows. Passengers traveled in luxury above the clouds, but the gas keeping it all airborne was hydrogen circumflex euros, the most flammable substance on Earth. The disaster was filmed live circumflex euros, the first aviation catastrophe seen by millions in cinemas. 36 people died. Investigators found that hydrogen, ignited by a spark, had burned the ship in seconds. The verdict was immediate. Hydrogen was too dangerous. No passenger airship ever flew commercially again. The airship industry collapsed overnight. Investment shifted to airplanes circumflex euros, heavier than air, no flammable gas. Helium replaced hydrogen in every remaining lighter-than-air craft. The disaster accelerated airplane development by decades. Within 20 years, jets were crossing the Atlantic in hours. 37 seconds ended an entire industry. The Hindenburg proved that convenience is never worth the risk when safety fails. Today we fly in jets, not airships circumflex euros, and every lighter-than-air craft uses helium, not hydrogen. One disaster that changed how the world travels. Number 5. Chernobyl, the night that rewrote nuclear power. Every warning light is red. The power level is surging beyond anything the operators have seen. They press the emergency shutdown circumflex euros, but it is too late. Reactor number 4 at Chernobyl is about to become the worst nuclear disaster in history. Nuclear power was expanding fast, but safety culture was dangerously thin. Operators had limited training. Reactor design flaws were classified. Safety tests were rushed or skipped. The system trusted that nothing could go seriously wrong circumflex euros without ever proving it. The explosion blew the reactor roof off. Radiation drifted across Europe circumflex euros, detected in Sweden before the Soviet Union even admitted anything had happened. The world demanded change. The IAEA created new safety standards, containment structures, independent oversight, mandatory operator training, and full transparency. Every new reactor was built with containment structures designed to survive the worst. Operators trained in simulators for hundreds of hours. Independent inspectors gained the power to shut down unsafe plants. Unsafe reactor designs were decommissioned worldwide. Chernobyl rewrote the rules of nuclear power. Chernobyl proved that nuclear power without safety culture is a threat to an entire continent. The disaster did not end nuclear energy circumflex euros. It forced it to grow up. Every reactor on Earth today operates under rules written because of one night in 1986. Number 6. Challenger, when engineers were overruled. The night before the launch, an engineer begged his managers not to fly. It was too cold. The rubber seals on the rocket boosters would fail. He showed the data. He was overruled. 73 seconds after launch, 7 astronauts were gone. NASA was under pressure to prove the shuttle could fly on schedule. Engineers raised concerns about parts wearing out faster than expected, but schedule pressure won every argument. The culture had a name: go fever. Fly on time, worry about problems later. It was only a matter of time. Physicist Richard Feynman dropped a piece of the shuttle's rubber seal into a glass of ice water. He squeezed it. It stayed flat circumflex euros. It did not bounce back in the cold. The seal had failed exactly as the engineers predicted. The commission concluded that management had overruled engineering. Safety warnings were ignored. NASA gave engineers veto power over launches. The concept of stop-work authority spread across industries circumflex euros. Any worker can halt a process they believe is unsafe. Aviation adopted crew resource management. Engineering schools now teach the Challenger case as the most important lesson in professional ethics. 7 astronauts died because engineers were overruled by schedule pressure. The Challenger disaster taught the world the most important safety lesson of all. When the people who understand the system say stop circumflex euros, listen. Number 7. Tenerife, the deadliest misunderstanding in aviation. 2 jumbo jets on the same runway. Fog so thick neither crew could see the other. One was taking off. The other was still on the runway. 583 people died in the deadliest aviation accident in history, circumflex euros, because of a misunderstanding. Aviation communication was informal. Pilots used vague phrases circumflex euros. At takeoff could mean preparing or already moving. Towers replied with OK instead of clear commands. Co-pilots were trained to defer to captains, not challenge them. Misunderstandings were built into the system. Investigators found that the KLM captain believed he had takeoff clearance. He did not. The tower's words were ambiguous. The co-pilot suspected a problem but did not challenge the captain. New rules followed. Standardized phrases worldwide, mandatory readbacks, and crew resource management circumflex euros. Co-pilots empowered to speak up. Every pilot on Earth now uses the same standardized phrases. Every instruction is read back word for word. Co-pilots are trained to challenge captains. English became the universal language of aviation. Ground radar was installed so controllers can see through fog. Communication was rebuilt from scratch. 583 people died because of a misunderstanding. Tenerife proved that clear communication is not optional circumflex euros. It is life or death. Every standardized phrase, every readback, every empowered co-pilot exists because of one foggy runway in 1977. Number 8. Cocoanut Grove, the doors that open the wrong way. The door opens inward. The crowd pushes forward. The people at the front are pinned against the door by the people behind them. The harder they push, the more the door stays shut. 492 people died at the Cocoanut Grove circumflex euros, many at doors that would not open. The Cocoanut Grove in Boston was packed with nearly 1,000 people circumflex euros, double its capacity. Decorations were made of paper and fabric. Exits were hidden behind curtains. The main entrance was a revolving door. Windows were boarded shut. The nightclub was a fire trap that nobody inspected. Investigators found that most people died at exits circumflex euros, crushed against inward opening doors or trapped by the revolving door. New fire codes followed. Every exit must open outward with a push bar. Maximum occupancy limits. Sprinklers. No flammable decorations. And the survivors advanced burn medicine by decades. Every push bar exit door. Every maximum occupancy sign. Every sprinkler system in a nightclub or theater circumflex euros. The trail leads back to the Cocoanut Grove. The fire also pioneered burn treatment and skin grafting techniques that are still used in hospitals today. 492 people died behind doors that opened the wrong way. The Cocoanut Grove changed how we build every public space. One fire that made sure a crowd can always push its way out. Number 9. Tacoma Narrows, the bridge that danced itself to death. The bridge is dancing. The road ripples like a ribbon. Cars slide sideways as the deck twists 30 degrees. Lampposts bend. Then the road breaks apart and falls into the water. The Tacoma Narrows Bridge destroyed itself on camera a circumflex euros and changed how every bridge is built. Bridge engineers designed for weight a circumflex euros. How many trucks? How heavy the trains? Wind was treated as a simple side push. Nobody considered that wind could hit a bridge at just the right rhythm and make it vibrate at its natural frequency a circumflex euros, amplifying until the structure tears itself apart. The film was studied frame by frame. In wind tunnels, engineers reproduced the exact twisting motion on scale models. They discovered aerodynamic flutter a circumflex euros, wind flowing around the flat deck created vortices that matched the bridge's natural vibration. Each gust amplified the last until the bridge tore apart. Every major bridge since Tacoma Narrows is tested in a wind tunnel before a single beam is placed. Bridge decks are shaped to break up wind vortices. Older bridges were retrofitted with stiffening. Modern structures use tuned mass dampers to absorb vibration. Wind became as important as weight. A bridge danced itself to death on camera. The footage became the most famous engineering failure in history a circumflex euros. And the reason every bridge you cross today is designed not just to hold weight, but to stand still in the wind. Number 10. Bhopal, the alarms they switched off to save money. The pressure is rising. The temperature is spiking. The alarms are off a circumflex euros. The company switched them off to save money. Outside the fence, 500,000 people are asleep. They do not know that a cloud of deadly gas is about to drift over their homes. The Bhopal plant had safety systems a circumflex euros, but they were all broken or switched off. The refrigeration unit was shut down. The gas scrubber was out of service. The water curtain had no pressure. Maintenance had been cut to save costs, and the plant sat in the middle of a city with no buffer zone. Thousands were affected overnight a circumflex euros, all preventable if a single safety system had been working. The world responded with new laws. The United States passed the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act. The EU adopted the Seveso Directive. Buffer zones around chemical plants became mandatory. Communities gained the right to know what chemicals were stored near their homes. Modern chemical plants maintain multiple redundant safety systems a circumflex euros, all regularly tested. Buffer zones keep homes at safe distances. Community alert systems warn residents of any incident. Chemical inventories are public. Independent inspectors have shutdown authority. Cost-cutting on safety is now a criminal offense. Bhopal proved that every dollar saved by cutting safety can cost thousands of lives. The disaster forced the chemical industry to choose: maintain safety systems or face criminal consequences. One night that changed how the world handles dangerous chemicals. Number 11. Molasses Flood, 2 million gallons with no engineer. A wall of molasses 2 stories tall surging through the streets of Boston at 35 miles per hour. Not water a circumflex euros molasses. Thick, heavy, and impossible to outrun. A storage tank had burst, and 2 million gallons of syrup crushed everything in its path. 21 people died. The tank was built without an engineer's design. No structural calculations, no inspection, no permit. It leaked from the day it was filled a circumflex euros. The company painted it brown to hide the stains. Residents complained. The company ignored them. There were no laws requiring anyone to check if the tank was safe. The lawsuit lasted 3 years a circumflex euros, the longest in Massachusetts history. Engineers proved the tank's steel was too thin and its rivets too few. It was never designed by a qualified engineer. New laws followed. Every industrial structure must be designed by a licensed engineer, plans must be reviewed, and construction must be inspected. Structural engineering became a licensed profession. Every design must be stamped by a qualified engineer who is personally accountable. Building inspectors verify that construction matches approved plans. The Molasses Flood created the system that ensures every structure you enter has been checked by someone who knows what they are doing. 2 million gallons of molasses destroyed a neighborhood because nobody checked if the tank could hold it. The flood that made engineering inspection mandatory, a circumflex euros, and ensured that every structure you trust with your life has been verified by someone qualified to build it. Number 12. Iroquois Theatre, the fire that invented the panic bar. The curtain caught fire during a holiday matinee. The safety curtain jammed halfway down. Smoke poured into the audience. Nearly 2,000 people, a circumflex euros, many of them children, a circumflex euros, rushed for the exits. What they found at the doors killed more people than the fire itself. The Iroquois Theatre called itself absolutely fireproof. The exits told a different story. Doors were bolted shut to stop people sneaking in. Other doors opened inward, a circumflex euros, impossible against a crowd. Fire escapes were unfinished, a circumflex euros, ending in midair. The locks were European designs that nobody in the audience knew how to operate. Over 600 people died, a circumflex euros, most at exits they could not open. Chicago rewrote every fire code, and an inventor created the panic bar, a circumflex euros, a horizontal bar across a door that opens it when pushed. No handle to turn, no lock to find. Just push, and the door swings outward. The simplest life-saving invention in history. Panic bars became mandatory on every theater, cinema, school, and public building in America, a circumflex euros. Then the world. Fire safety curtains were required to work perfectly. Exit signs were illuminated. Occupancy limits enforced. The panic bar, a circumflex euros, born from the Iroquois disaster, a circumflex euros, is now on virtually every emergency exit on Earth. 600 people died behind doors they could not open. The Iroquois Theatre fire invented the simplest, most effective safety device ever made, a circumflex euros, the panic bar. Every emergency exit you have ever pushed open exists because of one afternoon in Chicago in 1903.